Hi, thank you very much for joining us for tonight's webinar. Great to have you along. As we mentioned, we'll be recording this and posting this up on our YouTube site, and you'll also find links to the webinars. We'll also you'll get copies of the slides from our website and also links to any resources that we talk about. So please go to either sbdbusiness.com.au or horticulturenextgeneration.com to get those resources. Tonight we're going to be talking about effective methods or effective strategies for attracting and retaining quality team members. And this is a real challenge for many businesses, and I seem to be spending more and more of my time thinking about it and talking about it with clients, and there's some good reasons for that. So let's go on and explore them. In a recent TED Talk by a gentleman called Rainer Strack, he talked about, and he'd done a whole heap of analysis around an impending workforce crisis in 2030, there's links to the TED Talk and also to some of the papers that we talk about, and some really powerful stuff. And what they're saying is that by 2030, most of there'll be a big shortage of skilled workers around the world, and we're going to have to be pretty slick in the way we attract and retain our talent. Now, Australia possibly won't be as hardly hit as some other areas, and the study sort of highlights lots of other countries, not necessarily Australia, but I've done a little bit of calculations, and I don't have any skilled worker sort of numbers, but in terms of general population, the trend is not quite the same in Australia. The problem is that by 2020, many of our trading partners, particularly in Asia, will be starting to struggle for skilled labour, and therefore our Australian labour is going to be competing on the global stage, and we're going to see more and more people siphoned off to go and work for our competition. So even though Australia, there might be a great shortage, the global shortage will mean we're on the global stage and that they'll start picking up our workers. So it's really worth, I guess, start thinking about now your attraction and retention strategies, because 2020 is not that far away. Alright, so in terms of attraction and retention, and this model I've developed here sort of, for me, summarises the key dynamics of attraction and retention. And for me, the glue that holds it together, so that either attracts people to our business or retains them within our business, is the culture, the corporate culture of our organisation. For me, the corporate culture is that underlying personality of your business. So it's the true business that you see, and it's based on the values. So it's based on the values of the owners and of the people that work for you. But if the owners set the values and we start to attract the right sort of people to our business, then the culture, we build a really strong culture. The brand is therefore an external manifestation of our culture. Okay, so culture is absolutely critical in this space, and I guess some of the things that we're going to talk about later on will help to highlight this. So let's talk now about attraction. So the laws of attraction, there's not really laws, I just thought that was a great title. So what must we do in order to attract quality candidates to our business? Yeah. How do we get good quality people to apply for our jobs? Well, I've identified sort of 6 key principles. The first one is we need to have, just talked about it then, a strong brand with a strong brand with a clear purpose. Okay? So, it's really important that you start to build that brand, and the brand needs to be strong in the business community that you're a part of. So when I talk about brand, I'm not talking about your logo and those sort of things. I'm talking about that external persona of your business that you perpetuate in the marketplace. Okay? Now that needs to be strong. Now it's built on values and culture, and it was the subject of a previous webinar by Jim Parry. So if you go to the websites and look in the webinars, you'll see some great work here from Jim Parry on this, and I'd encourage you to go and watch those webinars because we're not going to talk about too much around this right now. Needless to say, building a brand or a reputation in the marketplace that's based on positive culture So building a brand around a positive culture will have other benefits for your business apart from attracting good quality staff. So a strong brand will also help with your marketing and other things. So think very clearly about your brand. It's a really critical component of attracting good quality people into your business. The second sort of law of attraction for me is that the hiring process should reflect your culture. I find so many businesses just don't have a hiring process that's just not reflective of their culture. If the process is messy, slow, and painful, what does that say about your business? So if you're going to recruit people, you want to present your business in the best light. You're trying to put yourself out there in the best way. Part of that's the brand, but the process is really important there. So having a great process is really important. The other thing is think about your values, so your culture and your values. And if teamwork is one of your core values, then don't have a recruiting process that doesn't involve the team. I see too many organisations that talk about it's all about team, and then we have two people who do all the interviewing and appointing, two senior managers do all that, and we often leave the team out of the process. So a good idea, if you value the input from your team and that's part of your values, have one interview with senior leadership, that's fine, but have another interview with part of the team that they're either going to manage or work with, so a combination of peers, and get them to, I guess, test them in different ways and look at them in different ways. You'll get a different perspective from the team than what you'll get from the leadership, and it's well worth doing. It also then reflects the culture and the values that you have in your business. So it's absolutely critical that you focus on those sort of things. So make sure your hiring process should reflect your culture and hence your brand as well. Third law is make sure you clearly define the role and make your copy engaging. Share your advertising copy engaging. Don't write a standard name, rank, and serial number job ad that talks incessantly about the company. Okay, so think about this as a sales process. Okay, seek to explain who are you looking for, the sort of outputs you expect from them, and then why they should work for you. If you jump on Seek now or any of the other big job boards, or have a look through the daily newspapers, you will see ads often written by reputable recruiting companies that talk incessantly about the company. Very little of it is about the person that you're looking for. Remember, we're trying to sell your company, but we're particularly trying to sell them the job of coming to work with you. So my sort of advice on this is to write a job ad that highlights the person and their qualities first. And you can start it with things like, you will be a successful manager in a high-performing business type thing. That sort of stuff. Then talk about the roles and outcomes and objectives that you expect this person to achieve. And then lastly, a little bit of stuff about your company. But you can actually put just a link to your company website there, which should provide them enough information about the company. So make the job ad about the person. Okay, really important. Use the role avatar. So think about it. It's a bit like target market. So who's your target market for your marketing? We've spent plenty of time talking about that in previous webinars. In this case, think about the role. Think about the sort of ideal candidate or ideal person for this job, an avatar, and write your ad and all that sort of stuff around attracting them. Okay. Rule number 4. Make sure you effectively target your applicants in the right way. Okay, so for a difficult to find role, so if a role that's going to be difficult to fill, then make sure you cast a wide net. I find too many companies have a one-size-fits-all approach. They drop all their jobs onto Seek, and that's all they do. And this is great for Seek, but it's not necessarily good for you. So I think a flexible range of recruiting options is probably most important, but it's really important that you tailor that around the applicants and how difficult that role is going to be to fill. So it's going to be a difficult role to fill, then you'll want to cast a wide net. You'll want to target passive candidates. So passive candidates, my wife's into recruiting, and she talks about basically headhunting for passive candidates. They are people who are not actively in the market looking for a job, so they're not trolling Seek looking for a job. They're people that only come through networks and other things, and we need to be able to sell them on the job, the culture of the organisation, and find a good match between the person and the culture and the role. So you do that. Now, you can use specialist recruiting specialist recruiters to help you with good industry expertise and networks to help you in these hard to find jobs. You can also use your networks through your own staff and social media. So look at a range of different options, because you're going to have to cast your net very, very wide, not just throw it up on Seek to find the difficult to find jobs. Now, if it's a much easier role, then what you want to think about is make sure it's a really targeted effort. Okay, so it's really easy to throw an easy to fill job up on Seek and get 200 or 300 responses to that role, and that just causes untold pain for you and your organisation and quite a high cost in doing that. So, if you don't target your efforts, you might want to, narrow down the scope of your advertising. Oh, sorry, big hands. Narrow down the scope of your advertising. And think about those sort of things. Or you might want to consider using an agency to help you either shortlist the applicants for you, to go through and scan the potential applicants if you've got lots of them, go through and check them and come back with a shortlist. I use a software system called Harrison Assessments. Harrison has a really smart recruiting engine in it that has a whole heap of eligibility questions and things in it, and allows you to actually sort a whole number of applicants down and start to pull out the cream that's floating to the top from all the rest. So you can use recruiting systems and stuff to do that for you, which is really good. We've established a horticulture job board called Horticulture Hub. And part of the system that we've implemented there, you have a pre-screening questionnaire that should help to screen out a whole heap of potential applicants for you. So you spend most of your time on people that are more appropriate for their job and get rid of a lot of the tire kickers. Okay, fifth rule, move quickly and decisively. When you find a good applicant, move quickly. Don't mess people about. I like you to treat them like a client. So you wouldn't delay a client and mess around with a client. You'd get onto it quickly. My advice is do the same thing with candidates, particularly in a role that is hard to fill. Okay, that also means you're going to have to be a bit flexible with interview times and some of those sorts of things, because a hard to fill job, the candidate is in the box seat in terms of coming to work for you, not the company, and having lots and lots of choice. So just remember that and make sure that you're flexible and accommodating for potential applicants in those sort of things. Really important as part of the process that you actually stick to the timelines. And if things change, then make sure you update the candidates, particularly your shortlisted candidates. Update them and keep them informed regularly of any changes. It just makes you look a lot better in the marketplace, and stops you losing candidates along the way. Last process then is last sort of rule is to have a structured recruiting process. I find that too many organisations just don't have a good recruiting process. They haven't really thought about it. We go, we should really employ somebody, whack a job up on one of the job boards somewhere, and then go, oh, gee, what are we going to do next? We've got all these applicants. Oh, who's going to sort those through? What are we going to do? My advice is don't waste your time and money without having a good process. So that process should start off with a clear role profile and job description for the role that you're about to do. You can then use that to write a quality advertisement that targets the sort of role avatar you're looking for. You also need to have, structured screening processes, a really good interview process that questions people around their values, around your values, and make sure there's a good values mix. And it also gets them to demonstrate core capabilities. So rather than asking a question like, do you know how to use Excel? People just go, yes. You can actually say, okay, then part of this job is actually to have really good Excel skills, and you are going to have to know about how to create a pivot table. Explain to me how you would create a pivot table around some sample data. Okay, so you can ask them some questions. Apologies, we have a thunderstorm in the background, so there's a bit of lightning and thunder happening. Shortlisting. What processes are you going to use to shortlist people? And my advice here is start to use decision matrices. So use a decision matrix that has 4 or 5 key criteria on it. You may want to weight those criteria and then score your potential applicants against those criteria to start to give you an effective shortlist. Once you've got a shortlist, then my advice is I would use some sort of assessment tools. We use Harrison Assessment to help our clients in their recruiting process, but I don't mind which one you use, provided you use a tool that you understand and that works with you and that helps you to get a great overview of the client. And the last one then is make sure that you have, effective reference checking processes. We've had a pretty high level occurrence in Australia in the last 12 months of somebody who lied about their prior experience and stuff and took a very high profile job. Just be careful. Take the time to check people's references and that they are who they say they are and what they say they are. My experience, too many businesses wing the recruiting process and then end up paying the price through high staff turnover and having to do it again. Okay, so they're the 6 laws of attraction. Let's talk now about retention. Okay, so, high staff turnover is a big cost in most businesses. The statistics are somewhere between 3 months and 12 months salary is the cost of the business of turning somebody over in a position. By the time you re-advertise, re-recruit, cover the person who's left, bring in the new person, bring them up to speed, train them, do all the things you need to do to get them up to the level where they're operating efficiently, you can normally expect somewhere between 3 and 12 months salary costs as part of that process. So if you're turning over lots of staff on a regular basis, then you've got a very high cost built into your business that you can effectively get rid of by following some of the things we're going to talk about now. Now, one of the things that I find amazing is that most businesses, not most businesses, a lot of businesses don't have a very effective onboarding process. So we go to a lot of trouble to an effort to recruit somebody and go through a whole heap of stuff, and when they start, we don't have a good process for engaging them and bringing them into our business. And I find this is where a lot of businesses drop the ball. I know of a large firm that recruited a colleague of mine, and on her first day she was basically shown to her office and left alone for the entire day, apart from a few people popping in to say hello. The people she was going to be working with had no idea of what they should do, and the people who had appointed her were too busy doing other things to spend any time with her. Left a really bad taste in her mouth and gave her a really poor first impression of the culture of that organisation, which took a while for her to get over. Ultimately, it meant she didn't stay with the company probably as long as she would have liked to. And it really was a direct reflection of the culture of that organisation. Disorganised, all over the place, and unstructured. So think about it, because your onboarding process is really a reflection of the culture and your company and your brand. Contrast this to a company that I know of that in the first week you're on board, they make sure that you do a whole heap of training and inductions around safety, around the organisation. You get to meet all the key players. You spend time with other managers and members of your team, and there's a whole process that you go through in that first week. You also get to see different elements of the company and understand it, and it's a great process to bring somebody on, get them up to speed quickly. There's actually quite a good book called The First 90 Days that I would recommend for anybody who is contemplating starting a new job, and it's about how you actually come into a new job and start up. But the company needs to have a matching process, which is around onboarding. We'll put a link to The First 90 Days in the workshop notes. Second thing is to make sure that we're really clear that the role you're putting out there, that the new role starting up, that the role is challenging and has clear objectives. So too many people start roles without any clear understanding of what's expected of them, what are the measures, how they're going to be measured, how can they actually perform in their job. So that's really important, because how can you give somebody effective feedback? How can you evaluate them in their probation period? How can you do all those sorts of things if you haven't clearly defined the objectives, the key performance indicators, and a whole heap of other elements for this job. Okay, so make sure you do. So my advice is I would start off with a clear workforce plan that highlights the recruiting and development needs of your business. You need to start at that point. From this, you can create an effective organisational structure. Then you can start to build roles and define roles that are clearly defined with challenging objective and performance measures. So once you've got all that in place, then it's much easier for you to do that. So you want to keep people engaged in your business. Make sure you clearly define the role, clearly define the challenges that you want them to take on, and how you will measure their performance. Okay, absolutely critical. Providing regular feedback is absolutely critical as well. In the BCG study, the Boston Consulting Group study that I talk about, where they look at the global workforce, they did what they called an employee happiness survey. So they surveyed over 200,000 people around the world and identified the top things that they look for in to make them happy in their role or their career. Surprisingly, salary and wages were number 8. Prior to that, number 1 was being shown an appreciation for your work. Now, the best way to do this is to provide regular feedback, okay? Particularly when that feedback in your organisation links to their performance, but also to your core values and the behaviours that underpin that. Absolutely, I'm going to say critical again, but it's really important that you do that. In previous webinars, we've talked about meeting structures and we've talked about a circuit breaker meeting. And a circuit breaker meeting is a great way to provide that feedback on a regular basis. Circuit breaker meeting is something where you sit down with your direct reports once every month to 6 weeks and you have a simple discussion with them that says, how are you performing? Let's have a quick look at your KPIs and those sorts of things. But then, how are you going in the job? What's going well for you? What's not going so well for you? What do we need to change? What's the one thing we need to work on in the next, in the next month that we need to change in order for you to do that? Now, it might be a gap in skills, knowledge, behaviours, whatever that you need to talk to them about. But get some feedback from them, but also gives you an opportunity as their manager to punch some feedback into that role. So, circuit breaker meetings are absolutely critical. In all the surveys I've seen, staff surveys and all that sort of stuff, everybody wants better communication and or more feedback on their role. So something you cannot overlook. Okay, worthwhile having a look at that BCG study. The link is in the notes. The second most important thing that people wanted were good relationships with colleagues. Absolutely critical then that you start to build strong teams. Strong teams with good interpersonal relationships where people get on, where they're focused on a common task with common objectives. Really important that this happens because it's what people look for. So people want to be part of teams, they want to function as part of teams, and it's your role as the owner and the manager of the business to build an effective team around you to help the business deliver its outcomes and its goals. Pretty self-evident, but really important. Third most important thing was to encourage a positive work-life balance. So people really wanted better work-life balance, and it's a difficult one as people's definition of work-life balance varies greatly, but it's about understanding what that is, and it's about encouraging people to be aware of it and to understand what's important for them in work life. So for some people, it's going to be spending, being flexible with time. Other people, it won't be about time, it's what they do outside of work. So we've run some webinars on work-life balance in the past. Really important that you spend a little bit of time to watch those webinars and understand what it is that people need to look for, because often it's what you do outside work that gives you the balance in that relationship. So really important as part of retention, though, that you start to think about work-life balance for your employees and how you can help them. The last one's about effective leadership, and it's a bit of a catch-all in some ways, but I find that invariably when staff leave and I do exit interviews for them or I talk to them afterwards, it's often about the quality of the leadership in the organisation at that time. So they didn't feel like they had a great leader. And so you actually can spend a fair bit of time building leadership capacity within your organisation. Now, often that's not about being the next Nelson Mandela. It's actually about a lot of simpler processes and systems than that. But it's certainly worth spending some time on having a think about it. For me, a strong leader is an effective leader is somebody with strong values, somebody who walks the talk, where their actions match their words, who are collaborators and work with others, who are approachable to their staff and their team members and other colleagues and helpful, who are strategic in their thinking, so they're actually thinking bigger picture and get the bigger picture, but they're also quite planned and well organised, and that I find are some of the characteristics of good leadership. But importantly, there are important characteristics for when we're talking about retaining people in our business. Okay, so in summary, we sort of talked about the global skill shortage and where that's at the moment. 2020, it's going to start to bite. Need to start thinking about it now and what we're going to do. We then talked about our model. The culture is the glue that helps us with attraction and retention, and I hope you got that message very clearly through the discussion. Your culture is based on the core values of your business, and your brand is the external manifestation of that culture in the marketplace. Laws of attraction, I talked you through the 6 laws of attraction. Need to have a strong brand with a clear purpose. Your hiring process should reflect your culture. So it's really important that you bring your culture to the fore in both your brand but also in the process that you take people through. Make sure you define the role clearly and then write some engaging copy that attracts people to your business. Make sure the focus is on the person, not on the company. Make sure that you match your process and you target your applicants by using appropriate process. So you may need to cast a wider net if it's difficult, or you may need to narrow that net up if it's an easier to fill job. Make sure you move quickly and decisively and treat your candidates as if they were clients. So give them the same respect you would give a client. And then lastly, make sure you have a structured recruiting process that really demonstrates the capacity and capability of your business in a very meaningful way. In terms of retention, that storm is really starting to pelt down, so sorry about that. In terms of retention, make sure you've got a good onboarding process. Make sure that you give people roles that have challenges in them with clear objectives and that you measure those, that you provide regular feedback. Probably the most important thing in this whole thing is that you provide really good quality feedback to them, particularly feedback that's linked to the values and the behaviours that you want in your organisation. Build strong teams so they can have good relationships and encourage work-life balance, and make sure you have effective leaders. So I've been making sure you're investing some time and energy and money into leadership development in your business. The next step, so in terms of what we've talked about here tonight, I guess the things I would be doing, I'd be looking back through both the attraction and retention things that we've talked about, and I would start to be asking my questions. What can we do to improve each element that was mentioned in our business? So what's the focus we're going to have in order to do that? How do you build the culture? So what are you going to focus on in building an effective culture in your business? Because it's absolutely critical to attracting and retaining good quality staff. Now, along the way, I've talked about a couple of things. I've talked about our recently launched Horticulture Job Board. So this is a job board that specialises in horticulture. And what we tried to do is put up a cost-effective process that's just focused on horticulture. You can actually put your resume, post a resume, or post your jobs on this for the next 60 days for free. So no cost there. You'll find it at www.horticulturehub.com. And love to see you on there. We're also going to build a training academy that hangs off this. We're going to call it the Horticulture Hub Academy, and we're going to start to do training like what's an effective recruiting process, how do you write a good CV, all those sorts of training programs we're going to plug into the Horticulture Hub Academy. So watch that space. I mentioned an assessment tool that I use called Harrison Assessment. Harrison is a great tool. I find it's a tool that I use as a business coach to better understand my clients and their personalities. It works on job preferences, so it works on what you prefer to do. So the argument is you'll be better at things that you prefer to do, and Dr. Harrison's created a brilliant system around that. It also has a really good recruiting engine built into it that allows you to assess and evaluate candidates really well, and then you can then run profiles on them. So it looks at both eligibility and suitability for the job and can help you in that process. So if you're interested in finding out more about Harrison Assessments, either to assess your shortlisted candidates or to help you with the entire recruiting process, please just contact us and we can help you out. Have a look at harrisonassessments.com, or there's links on our websites as well to Harrison. So that's a great tool. Thank you. Now, the next webinar, we haven't selected a date right at this moment, but it's going to be around finance and cash flow from Peter Lucas of Kestrel Solutions. One of the things we find is that most businesses don't have a great handle on finance and cash, but this is not going to be a boring sort of, P&L, learn to understand your P&L sort of talk. It's going to be from Peter, who works with turnaround businesses, on some tools and some processes to help you better manage the cash and the finance in your business so you can get some real leverage. So looking forward to that. We'll no doubt send you out some emails and some promotion around that webinar coming up in late July. All right, so thank you very much. Great to have you along here today. If you've got any questions, you might post them in the discussion forum, in the discussion area below this post on the website. Please feel free to download all the resources. If you would like us to assist you in any way in your business, then really happy to have a chat with you to make sure we're a good fit for your business. I actually don't work with businesses that I haven't had a good talk to, so we're going to start putting some buttons on the website, so really easy for you to just click on that button, book a simple phone call with me where I can understand your business, the aspirations that you have for that business, where you want to take it, and then the barriers that are getting in the way. From there, we can determine whether I'm a useful fit for you, what some of the solutions might be, and whether there's an opportunity for us to work together. That will be, I guess my aim is to add significant value in that call for you, but also to help you determine what are some of the things that you need to do to move ahead. All right, follow the prompts if you're interested in that, or simply flick me an email or give me a call on my mobile phone. Thanks very much for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you at one of our future webinars.